so that we can get everyone on time and out of here on
Recording in
time.
progress.
All right, so we are starting a meeting at 9:31, 9:32. And do you want to do an introduction of staff and the public? Let's see. Or we take roll call?
Chair Sorgman,
Here?
Vice Chair Marston,
Here.
Committee Member Kovich,
Here.
Committee Member Kuntz,
Here.
Committee Member Luckett, Committee Member Rassler,
Here.
Committee Member Tejada. We acknowledge Tejada was not able to attend. Council Member Oscar Gutierrez, Brian Demore,
Here.
John Doimus, Sarita King,
Here.
All right, thank you. So do we have any committee member reports and any staff announcements? Brian?
No staff announcements. I'll have some items on the ADA coordinator report.
Okay. Do we have any public comment? No? All right then, we'll move on. So we have approval of the minutes. Does someone want to make a motion?
Sorry. Jumping back.
Okay.
I do see there's a note here, Sarita sets the table for me and I need to pay attention. So under staff announcements, I do need to make one note here. It says that the posted agenda that was sent to the committee on May 8th had the next meeting date noted incorrectly. So the next meeting is August 22nd, not August 17th. And that was in the posted agenda that was sent to the committee on May 8th. So it's just a correction that you all should be aware of.
All right then, thank you.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Are we still on number 2? Committee member reports? Is that where we are?
We had gone to public comment. No one, okay, do you want to go back to number 2?
Yes.
Okay.
So it's come to my attention that the ordinance committee is has taken action on the presentation, the sign ordinance that we heard about here at our last meeting, and it seems that it's moving forward despite some of our objections, and I wondered if this committee had any appetite to reconvene any sort of special meeting or ad hoc to discuss that before it is ratified.
So can you give us a summary of what you believe is in conflict for what we suggested?
So we had recommended that only staked signs be allowed in the parkway, and it sounds to me that the ordinance would allow A-frame signs outside of the parkway.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess we can't get into too much
Yep.
discussion since it's not on the agenda, but my understanding is signs will only be allowed in what's defined as the parkway area. I think there was some discussion. I think there needs to be maybe a little bit of clarity given on what defines parkway, but there shouldn't be any signage other than in parkway areas, and the proposal would allow for A-frames within parkways. I think the concern from the committee that we heard at the last meeting was that the A-frames more easily migrate as opposed to the staked signs, which have to be in dirt and can't end up in the path of travel.
Right, and there was also something that this committee recommended that I didn't see in the draft ordinance, and that was regarding, there's different types of parkway. There's planted parkway, and then there's parkway that has turf or DG or other surfaces that people can ambulate through. And I wouldn't want to see those signs in the parkway that allows for ambulation, for unloading at the curb, et cetera. And I didn't see that clearly defined in the proposed ordinance. So just, I know it's not on the agenda, we can't get into any detail about it now, and I just wonder if anyone else on the committee has an appetite for further discussion that is agendized or otherwise not running afoul of the Brown Act.
In response, to Committee Member Rassler, I think we made our points clear. It is now made again. I don't have any appetite for it because this is an advisory committee, not a deciding committee. We have advised. You've now restated it correctly. I think it is a valid concern and one the city needs to be aware of, and it's got to be recorded in the notes and passed along wherever it needs to go. But I think, you know, we've done what we need to do. We've advised correctly about accessibility, and those signs should not be there, plain and simple. But I don't think we need to go over it and over and over it. We've made it very, very clear.
Absolutely valid, Committee Member Rassler. What one nuance that you might not recognize is that the report that council got does not clearly articulate our advice.
That's a whole nother matter. If our discussion from our last meeting was not captured correctly, it needs to be shared appropriately and restated today because it was noted that it was not stated correctly and it was not represented appropriately. And let's be very, very clear, those A-frame signs should not be in any parkway, grass, turf, or otherwise. Just plain and simple. And let's make sure that, you know, that's clear.
And I don't want to give the opinion that we were intentionally misrepresented. There may have been inadvertent omission of finer point details, and I'm not sure that the ordinance committee is privy to all the levels of detail we would have liked them to have been.
Yeah, I can't imagine any ill will,
Right.
you know, consciously to undermine
Yeah.
the good work, but correct. You know, it's just a matter of, you know, how does it get transferred?
Yeah, I'm going to make a suggestion. We can bring it back just as an update. I did present and speak to the ordinance committee, but again, it's not been agendized, so we don't get to talk about it anymore.
Elizabeth, can you talk about the statement you got from Mr. Gutierrez about having no
Yep.
input at all? Because that's, to me,
Right, so
yeah.
if there was any omission, it would be on my part because the city attorney used the information that I provided in their recommendations. They chose not to necessarily follow exactly what we said. You know, they took some additional liberties, which they can. And so in making the presentation to the ordinance committee, I was just surprised by Oscar Gutierrez's comment that he's never received any complaints from any members of the public about encroachments in the right-of-way, when obviously we've received a lot of them. So I was just curious. I know that we have that website where people can make, you know,
SB Connect?
yes, SB Connect, where someone can give input or complain, whatever you want to call it, about something that's, you know, they're not able to access because of something being blocked. Who gets that email? Are you the only one that gets that email? And can members of this committee get those emails?
Through the SB Connect, I wouldn't even get those notifications, but there's a way I could go in and probably sort the types of requests and see how many of those issues come up. Separately from SB Connect, there is, at least at one time there was, I'd have to go in and see if we still have a site. I think there used to be for, I forget what it was called, but you kind of indicated it, path of travel issues. We may have moved away from that in place of having the SB Connect app. So I'd have to look and see, but there's a way to run some queries and see what
Yeah, that would
the
be,
volume of those requests has been.
I mean, I know that other members have made requests about making sure that we're keeping track of those, so it would be nice to be able to share that with City Council. Thank you. All right, so we're going to now go to approval of the minutes. Someone want to make a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
I'll second it. This is Jim.
All right, so all in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
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 Aye. Are any against? No, unanimous then. Thank you.
And I don't know if we passed over public comment. I just want to make sure.
We
did
did call
ask.
public comment.
Okay,
We did, but there wasn't anyone.
all right.
Okay. All right, so then, perfect timing, the film festival. Thank you so much, one, for coming and giving us an update, and I'm glad that you didn't have to wait here very long.
Well, thank you. There we go. Thank you. Good morning. Yes, we listened to the last meeting. We have our architects dialed in. So if any question comes up that I cannot answer, they will answer. At the front entrance, visitors pass through an open gate and encounter a newly constructed code-compliant switchback ramp system that we're going to be installing. This system will replace a previously installed vertical lift, providing equivalent facilitation in accordance with accessibility regulations. The ramp will consist of 3 segments, each approximately 18 feet in length, and it's outfitted with handrails, will be outfitted with handrails and guide rails as required by code. This ramp location is spatially and visually an extension of the entry foyer, and the guest experience on the ramp and stair are comparable. Once at the base of the ramp, patrons have direct access to the box office with compliant counter height, and patrons enter the building through 3 swinging doors equipped with accessible pulls. Each door complies with the California Building Code requirement of a maximum 5-pound opening force. Inside patrons will arrive in the lobby area, providing direct access to essential amenities, including a concession stand with 34-inch high service counter for wheelchair access, a fully accessible customer service office counter also at 34 inches in height, and restrooms. Each restroom will include at least 1 wheelchair accessible stall and an ambulatory stall, as well as accessible sinks and toilet accessories. I mean, I can continue and continue, but we thought it was extremely. We love your feedback. We went back and it totally. Our mission with the film festival, everything that we do, the programming is about making everything accessible to everybody. Inclusivity is very important to us, and us not doing a ramp for the building was not right. And just know that it's going to be a great building now because of this ramp.
Well, I just want to say thank you so much. I saw some of the news that were featuring the renderings, and they look wonderful. And again, it's all going to be really easy for someone to access. Families with strollers, grandparents that need a little assistance, someone that's in a wheelchair. So thank you so much for listening and for being able to accommodate that design. It's really appreciated, and I think our community will really benefit from the efforts that you guys have put together. So thanks.
Yeah, the clincher for me is this: just seeing the people arriving as of late to the building, because we just closed it, but it had been running since November. The way we cleaned it up and we added new equipment, but it was running. And and watching people that are in the 60s and 70s that are mobile, but they need extra time, and the stairs are too steep, and so having a ramp is going to benefit everybody.
Yeah.
So. And plus, it's going to part of the design looks pretty badass to have this beautiful,
It looked great. Those renderings are wonderful.
yeah, but the ramp makes it,
Yeah.
I have to say, makes it aesthetically just exciting, you know? Yeah, yeah.
I wanted to share, I was very impressed with the plans I saw, and my hat's off to you. Thank you very much for the, going with the ramp. They're so much more helpful for the disabled than the lifts.
Yeah, yeah, no, I agree. And then everything else, you have my word. I mean, I could go into all the details of the inside, but everything inside will be up to code and,
Can I ask one question
Sure.
about emergency exits out into the back parking lot? Are those still in use in the new plans? And is it possible to make one of, I think there's an array of them along the back.
Correct.
There used to be. Well, I haven't been in there for 30 years, but I remember as a kid leaving the theaters up the little back steps and out the doors into the parking lot. And my concern is for fire safety. If there were a fire in the lobby, is there another way for a wheelchair to get out the back of the building? And it may not be required by code, but I wonder if it would be possible to accommodate an emergency exit.
we will look into it. Sean, are you aware of?
I mean, the one issue is every theater is below ground level.
Right.
And it's the same issue with the ramp that we had to take out the break room, the storage room, it would be a chairlift for every theater. There's the way it goes in, and we'd have to eliminate the lower level of the parking lot probably. I mean, we'll look into what we do, but it's the way the building was built is.
Seemed to me that well,
There was
Look
one
into it.
side, there was one side exit that used to exist that got infilled at some point.
There's a side entrance, but there's I think there's 8 steps.
Okay.
To get into it.
Okay.
So we could look that one.
maybe ramping the hallway. It's a long hallway to that back door. So if, I'm sure if it was required, it would already be covered, but it would be nice to consider if it's possible.
We'll definitely look into it.
All right, then, thank you so much. Much appreciated.
Roger, I wanted to say something. I was wowed by the design I saw on TV, and I'm so glad you were so open to our recommendations and getting them implemented so soon. So I look forward to enjoying films there in the future.
Well, thank you. Your feedback really was important to us. And the change, I think it's going to make the building, as I said, a far better, more inclusive place to be.
I
So,
think a lot more people than the mobility impaired are going to use that ramp. It's
Yeah.
going to be
Yeah.
very
Okay.
easy to get
My-
in and out.
My 90-year-old mom is going to be able to use it happily, so, yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Just a quick question. What's your plans for the cookie plug spot?
We have no control or say. For some reason, Noozhawk pegged us, and with that, we have nothing to do with that space. That's the city who owns the lease of those 2 spaces next to
Okay.
us. Yeah. What happened, and I don't want to take too much of your time, but what happened was that the previous tenant, the Metropolitan, had all of it. When we negotiated with the city, they split the leases, and they had to, the cookie plug had to deal with the city. So, yeah, that's a question for the city about
Okay.
who's going into that space.
All right.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you. Oh, wait, you have a question?
Yes.
Yeah.
Has there been any, I know it's a bit beyond the scope of the city issues, but has there been any further talk with producers about trying to get more audio description?
We
I know
will
with AI,
we will be getting audio description, but just keep in mind not all films have it.
Yeah.
So when I show a foreign film from a small country and they send us the DCP, we will request, but some of them do not provide it.
Right.
Okay, but you have my word that we will provide it as much as possible. And we'll also have the hearing loop installed in all of the theaters.
Great.
I wonder if the film festival would be open to partnering with a local nonprofit like the Braille Institute to try to come up with our own local audio description, if that's even possible. But it would either side, I recognize Skylar's involved at the Braille Institute. I wonder if there might be an opportunity for collaboration.
Yeah. Well, the possibilities is either having a human at theaters where they know there's going to be a blind person, or trying to do more with AI, which I still need to, there's a lot of developments this year that I still need to catch up on that maybe it wouldn't be as hard.
We will look into it.
Yes.
I will reach out to the Braille Institute, and we'll look into it.
Great.
Okay?
All right, thank you so much.
Thank
Yes,
you.
thank you.
Have a great weekend.
You too.
All right. Did anyone have any public comment about that? Nope, all right. So next is item number 6, the State Street Short-Term Action Plan update.
Good morning, committee members. My name is Tess Harris. I'm the State Street Master Planner in the City Administrator's Office. And with me today is Sarah Clark, the Public Works Downtown Team Manager. Really happy to be here today to talk a little bit about what's happening as part of the short-term action plan that was approved by Council in September last year. We're working on a number of projects for State Street and the downtown core, and excited to talk about them today. So one of the, I'm going to run through a list, and then I'd love to take questions, and we will and chat a little bit in more detail. So the first item is the 1200 block on State Street. That's the block by the Granada Theater. We are currently doing sort of a refresh of that block for the landscaping. So the landscaping, with the exception of trees, has been removed from that block. We're expanding the brick on much of that prior landscaped area, so there'll be additional sidewalk space or brick space. And then we'll be doing some replanting of smaller scale or lower level plantings, adding some color to the street, and just sort of freshening up the overall environment. Part of that effort is to encourage outdoor dining to come closer to the front of a business, but also making sure that we allow a solid 8 feet of sidewalk travel at minimum in that location. So that additional brick space will help with that. The other item we're working on is with the Historic Landmarks Commission, and we are working on some pre-approved furniture standards that a business could essentially go to the document and pick out tables and chairs, planters and pots, umbrellas, basically all the furnishings that they would need to operate in the outdoor environment. It includes a section for ADA tables as well. And I think the nice thing about that is that as a business owner, they can look at that document and they can choose one of the items. They don't have to choose the same manufacturer, but it needs to look, it needs to look very similar, needs to have the same sort of feel to it. But there are links in that document as well. So if somebody just wants to go ahead and purchase, they can click on it and it'll take them there. So that is going through the Historic Landmarks Commission process. We have a subcommittee with that commission that's working on that with staff. We took it to them last Wednesday and got some initial comments and feedback, and it will be going back likely during their meeting on June 18th.
Very quick question. Is that
Yes.
going to be required? They have to do this?
Great question, committee member. So it will be required to update outdoor furniture. It will be required at the by 2026 or upon the completion of the master plan, by the end of 2026 or completion of the master plan. Now, a business could decide not to use one of the pre-approved options and instead go through the regular design review process. So a lot of the pre-approved options are of a certain color and sort of certain look and feel. If a business wanted to wanted to have something that looked a little closer to their branding, they could do that. They would just need to go through the Historic Landmarks Commission process.
And would that be before they get a permit, or what's the oversight on this?
Yes, so what would happen is when they're getting approved for their outdoor business facility, they would get the approval, and then they could go ahead and just purchase tables and chairs without actually needing to come in for a design permit. The alternative would be if they don't pick something from that list, then they would need to come in for a design permit. So we're trying to make it easier on businesses and less time consuming from the planning process.
Thank you.
That draft is on their website as well. I'm happy to share it with this committee too, if you'd like to see the draft of that document.
And so when you mean draft, you're talking about the furniture that's been selected?
Yes, so the document went to the full Historic Landmarks Commission last week, and they had some comments and edits that staff's working on updating. So it's still in a draft form, but it is on their website online right now. And we will finalize it, clean it up a little bit. There's a couple things that were in the draft document that will be taken out. And most of that had to do with the color and material of some of the tables and chairs that we had. But it's there for viewing if you like. And again, I'm happy to send it to the committee.
Yes, and just who's checking to make sure that the tables provide the correct clearance for accessibility?
So yes, great question. So we have a 42-inch table and a 36-inch table in terms of height on there. We have our public works staff that's looked at it and assisted as well thoroughly, and would certainly welcome if there are additional tables that this committee would like to make sure are considered. We can certainly add to that list.
Yeah, I just want to make sure, because usually tables with a round base aren't compliant, so.
Yes. Thank you, committee member. Yes, that is correct. We do of the ADA tables, they are all four posted square tables, and they are at the correct height. We wanted to make sure that we're giving people options so that they can pick a couple of them and have some option with ADA.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Skylar has a question.
Yeah, another thing that I've noticed, it's been a few months now, but sometimes near the Paseo Nuevo area, there are outside clothes racks or things like that, things that are not tables, but like other impediments too much on the sidewalk. Like, has that been kind of in the conversation?
Yes, great question. So we do want to make sure that we keep that sidewalk space accessible at all times. Our staff, certainly if you notice something like that, please do let us know, and we'll go out and make sure that that clearance is still met. And we can make sure to keep an eye in that area as well.
Okay, so the SB Connect website forum is just
SB Connect would be a great way to do that. So if you have a picture or something to share with staff, if you also want to just communicate directly with us, we can look into it as well. I'm going to have Sarah also come up and help with that.
Yeah, well, now those of us who are blind can more easily take pictures of our phones and verify that with some of the new AI apps that what's in the picture is what you want it to be. So.
Yeah, thank you, committee member. And through the chair, this is Sarah Clark. I'm the Public Works Downtown Team Manager. I also want to mention SB Connect is one way to submit feedback if you see something or if you experience something that is hindering accessibility. If it's on State Street, you can also give us a call at the downtown parking office. We can send downtown ambassadors, for example, to go and check that out, or we can have staff go check that out more quickly. So that would probably be the fastest way. The general line for the office is 805-564-5656. But if you give us a call there, particularly during business hours, we can have somebody come and take a look at that.
Great. The next item I wanted to talk about, I've got a few more items. So the City Council recently approved funding for a pilot program to add pedlets to the 500 block of State Street. That's the block between Haley and Coda Street, where really a majority of the outdoor dining is concentrated right now. There are about 20 businesses that operate in the street itself. The idea behind the pedlets would be that they essentially are extending.
Padlets?
They're called pedlets, Pedlets, kind of a silly name, and with parklets, it's a very similar name, but think of them as sidewalk extenders. So they're manufactured by a company called Mod Street, and they essentially extend the sidewalk space by an additional 8 feet. They're modular, so they're 8 feet by 4 feet. They can be positioned in different ways. And the goal of that is going to be to move the dining space that's currently in the streetscape up against the building frontage, and to have that pedlet as the expanded sidewalk area. So it would allow for people to travel up and down with accessible entryways for all of the businesses, but just putting the tables and chairs up closer to the building frontage so that both the patrons and the businesses aren't sort of crossing through the public sidewalk space, the landscape planters and whatnot. And so that is likely to, we've put the order in, and they are likely to come towards the end of summer. We're anticipating an August timeframe on that block. Again, it's just a test. It's really, the pilot is really intended to understand how an expanded sidewalk on State Street would work, sort of how people like the idea of expanded sidewalk space on the street. And sort of test out that different dining arrangement. At that time, we anticipate bringing a lot of the 500 block businesses, trying to move them into that pre-approved dining furniture that I mentioned earlier. So making sure that there's just a little bit more conformity and that look and feel on that block, and just in downtown in general is a bit more consistent than what exists today. The other item.
Can I ask a quick question
yes,
about
absolutely.
I'm just trying to understand policy, procedure-wise, how we came to this this pilot. You know, I think this
Sure.
committee had been advocating for that like 5 years ago, that we move the sidewalk out and keep the dining in the public right of way up against the building, and I'm just wondering what changed. We couldn't get any traction 5 years ago, and it might be helpful for us to understand how that came about, and maybe it would guide future efforts here to get there quicker. I don't know.
Sure, Committee Member Kuntz, through the chair. Yes. So we this new city administrator came into the city about a year ago or so, and then shortly after she joined, we created the State Street Short-Term Action Plan, and part of that effort was to really make sure that there's a full list of all the things that multiple departments that are working on State Street are trying to accomplish, and things that we've heard from commissions and committees with interest. And so that list, actually, it's very long. I'm just touching a few of the ones that are moving quicker, but there's probably about 15 different items on that list. So that was approved by council in September of 2024. And then staff began really diving in a bit deeper into some of those items, because we wanted to get clarity from council on which short-term items we should be focused on State Street right now, and which ones we should be kind of moving forward, recognizing that there's a cost associated with all of them. We went to council on April 15th of this year to get funding for a number of different pilot projects, including the Mod Street pedlet option on the 500 block, to really test out that expanded sidewalk space. And so once we got approval for that, we were able to then purchase and sort of move forward. Again, they're all pilots or tests. So the idea is not that they're going to remain out permanently, but that they're going to better inform staff for how we can proceed when we're looking at the long-term future of State Street. Right now, there's a lot of different thoughts on what downtown should look like and feel like, and what things should be out in the street. And there are trade-offs associated with that. And so we are wanting to start to test things to really recognize, okay, an expanded sidewalk, for example, might result in a smaller space for if we were to bring traffic back into the street. There's a different space there, right? Or bike lanes. So looking at all of that. Same with what I'll talk about in a minute, the shuttle and golf cart idea. So really trying to think through a number of different items for State Street.
I have a few
Yes.
questions on the pedlets.
Yes.
So we're always hearing about budget problems in the city. So I have two concerns. Who is benefiting from the $500,000 that the city is going to spend for these pedlets besides the businesses? Who is this helping besides the business owners? First of all, I don't understand why we're spending $500,000 for helping out the businesses. And the other problem is it reduces the parklet fees because they're not going to be in the street anymore. They're going to be on the sidewalk, which is a cheaper fee. So how are we justifying this $500,000 and lowered fees in a time of budget problems?
Yes, committee member, I can try to answer that, and I'll have Sarah Clark also come up if I am missing anything. So first, I'm going to answer the fee question. They would still have the same fees. So they might have a smaller space up on against their building frontage because they might not have as much space adjacent to their entryway as they previously did in the street for the amount of tables and chairs that they formerly had. But they still would be required to pay a fee for outdoor dining. The other portion of that, just in terms of sort of budget, we looked at Measure C funds and reallocating projects that as staff, we knew weren't going to come online over the next year for this effort. And part of it is a trade-off. You're correct in that, and City Council had the desire to move forward with some of these pilot projects, and they're just in reality, there is an expense to them that is large. I will say, I think the pedlets, while yes, they are benefiting businesses to be able to push their tables and chairs up against their building frontage, I do also think it is a benefit to the larger public to be able to have expanded sidewalk space and be able to travel up and down and really enjoy that experience rather than being in the street itself.
Which, excuse me, but that comes back to Nick's original comment of, we asked about this, close to 5 years ago, and I think patience and perseverance and a little bit of serendipity or luck is the actual answer to your question. But that's part of why, we asked for this is because of the greater accessibility and just the sheer amount of room to enable, people with ambulatory issues to have access to these restaurants and the walkway. So I'm not sure I understand the question, but that's okay.
As far as the fees mentioned, I thought that the outdoor dining license fees are based on tables and chairs and not square footage of the parklet. So to me, that's a smaller income stream than the parklet would have generated. That's what my concern was.
Understood, committee member. I'm going to have Sarah Clark come up and help me answer that one. She's our expert on all things fees.
Thank you, Ms. Harris. That was maybe a little bit of an overstatement, but so yeah, you're correct. The outdoor dining license fees are actually substantially lower than what we were charging for the outdoor business facilities or the parklets in the street. One of the reasons we have a higher fee on that is associated with the higher cost of administration and of maintenance to the city. So the part of it was to offset that. So when we moved to the sidewalk, the business owner actually takes on sort of a greater responsibility for their space as opposed to having it out in the street. So there's a little bit of less cost to the city. But in this case, this is something new where we're going to be looking at having these sort of expanded sidewalk dining areas that go a bit beyond where our traditional outdoor dining license program would be. And so I think that the fees are something that we can continue to consider, whether right now they're calibrated correctly or not. So I would note that, we've sort of already planned in our budget for next year that we would see a reduction in those fees. And so that's something that we're going to have to evaluate as we continue to move along. And, to the question of, who benefits from this, I think as Tess noted, obviously the businesses that are moving onto the sidewalk may see some direct benefit, but also part of the reason that we're doing this is to test out different concepts on State Street. And in this case, to sort of test out a concept of expanded sidewalks and building front adjacent dining that is considered for the master plan. And so this gives us an opportunity as a community as a whole to sort of see how a concept like this would work in practice before we commit to a large capital investment. And so, the idea is to continue to preserve those community priorities and what we've heard in terms of people enjoying the outdoor dining, enjoying the wider sidewalks, and find a good way to transition that into a longer term use. So.
Thank you. I want to clarify one thing. When you mentioned this Pedlets is a test project, it's going to stay on 500 block. You're talking about a test project for other streets, other blocks, right?
Yeah, Vice Chair Marston, through the chair. Right now, the Pedlet project will be limited to the 500 block. However, we have ordered a few extra Pedlets. We had ordered about 40 extra feet. So if we want to try them somewhere else, these are modular products so that they can be moved around and adjusted. So it might be something where if we find it successful on the 500 block, it's something that we try out then and expand into other places.
Right. So that's what meant by the test project, right?
Yes.
Okay,
So
thank you.
there's a possibility of expanding it down the line if we find that it's successful. So.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Marston, I would like to remind you that I think we both heard pretty clearly that Ms. Clark asked council for more fees out of the outdoor dining program licensing, and council cut those. So I think if we need more budgeting for these parklets, we need to be advocating to council.
Are you talking about the original $5 a square foot?
Yeah.
That was cut to $2? Yeah,
That's
that
my
was-
recollection,
yeah.
that staff
That was sad.
advocated for more and council cut it for whatever
Right.
reason.
I have a little comment. Do you know how far the intrusion of the dining will be into the sidewalk area? Is there a foot length that they can go out?
Committee member, we are, through the chair, we are still working on that. So part of the pilot will be when we're working on a survey on the 500 block, first off, to really understand exactly, to this very small decimal point, how much space we have on the sidewalk, on the street, and the other portion of the sidewalk, and then where the Pedlets will fall into place in each of them, and the ramps that will come up from the Pedlets to the different entry points. We'll be working and meeting with individual businesses to sort of start to identify locations where they can put their tables and chairs on sidewalks, but it is a bit still TBD.
Okay.
That Pedlet space will remain open, definitely with at least 8 feet.
Yeah, I enjoy outdoor dining immensely, especially when I take my little dog with me. But I believe, Brian or Elizabeth can correct me, but I believe for a wheelchair, the ADA space has to be linear for path of travel versus having to go around a thing, which is more difficult, especially if you're pushing one manually. So is that correct, Elizabeth? The path of travel should be straight without obstacles when possible?
I mean, ideally, but that's not required. You can go around it can be circuitous,
Okay.
but,
Because I thought I heard it in a, in-service.
I mean, I think the pedlet, at least what I'm understanding, it's going to be the walkway, right? So it's not going to have any obstructions in that 8 feet, correct?
Yes, Chair. So, yeah, there will be no obstructions, so it will be 8 feet. There will be sort of 4 separate segments of pedlets because, as you know, we've got a mid-block crossing and a mid-block ramp that we continue to need to maintain clear space. So at those ends, the pedlet will just ramp down to the street surface, and then you can either go up on the sidewalk or cross the street there, and then it'll ramp back up. Again, we've got ADA-compliant ramps on either end. And then on the other ends, in some cases, it's going to just, again, ramp back down into the crosswalk area. I believe in one case, the pedlet, so the path of travel is actually going to kind of angle you back onto the sidewalk because we wanted to bring pedestrians back to the area near the Hotel Santa Barbara where we've got a number of retail spaces. So in that case where there is a little bend in the path of travel, we will have likely planters or something to provide cane detection for individuals who need to understand that the sidewalk is going to bend a little bit. So.
And what is the required width on those transitions?
So are you talking about the ramps?
No, I'm thinking in the case where you have to transition from sidewalk perpendicular out to the pedlet, what is the horizontal width required at that transition?
Sure, that's a good question, and I don't know off the top of my head what that requirement is, but I'm trying to visualize it in my head. My understanding is that it's going to be at least 6 feet wide or so, so it's going to, I think it maintains the full 8 feet. I would need to look at the actual plans, but it's just, if you imagine the pedlet segment as like a rectangle,
Yep.
it's just going to be kind of a triangle so that you will go
Yep.
back on. So
Yep.
there'll be a sort of a wide area where the pedlet is flush with the sidewalk, and you'll be able to
Yep.
merge over.
Okay, thank you.
And could you go into a little more detail about the type of trolley or the width of that, and also the bike issue combined with the trolley? Is the bike lane going to be narrowed or separated on the side? And how is the city ordinance or recommendation for speed going?
Yes, thank you, committee member. That's the next items that I wanted to
Okay.
talk about were the shuttles. So first we have the MTD shuttle that is coming back beginning May 30th. It'll be running from Friday through Sunday from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. It'll operate on Chapala and Anacapa Streets, doing somewhat of a loop. It'll go down to the waterfront and over to the zoo as well. So we're really excited to have that back with us on Chapala and Anacapa Streets. And
Is that the open air one?
It will be the waterfront shuttle, sort of their newer electric, smaller kind of bus system. So that's the white and sort of teal green, but smaller scale bus configuration.
There, so I can answer that. So it will be, as Tess noted, it will be the electric buses that they offer. They no longer are able to operate the open-air shuttles that they previously did for a long time. So this is more just like a standard city bus. In some cases, they are able to take out sort of the windows to give for more of an open-air feel, but generally, I believe they run them just like a city bus.
Can I ask another question on the bus system? This is, again, it's seasonal, right? It's only going to be for the summer through, what, Labor Day or?
Committee Member Kuntz, at this time, yes, we are exploring ways to possibly continue that service.
Okay. I would love, I don't know how I could advocate better for that to become a permanent, regular rate route on MTD's program. There's so many people that would benefit from that. And I would love to understand the impediments to making that happen. If anybody can shine any light on that for me, I would really appreciate it.
Certainly, Committee Member Kuntz, I think we share that sentiment of recognizing that this is a significant need for the community. You know, at this point, the impediment is simply funding. So the shuttle, for example, when the city operated the downtown waterfront shuttle on State Street, that cost us about, I believe, $1.1 or so million a year. That would be substantially higher now. So it's a matter of budget and of not having the funding. So previously, that funding came from the downtown parking fund.
Yeah, but that was a reduced fare, right? Why wouldn't it be regular fare rate?
So I believe that was at the 50-cent rate or the 75-cent rate. That would be a decision for MTD to make.
Right.
We could look at that and see if that would be, provide a larger offset. But again, fundamentally, it's a budget issue and just not having a funding source for that. So.
Nick, thanks for bringing that up. I want to point out, many of us have been in favor of, what?
Just get a little closer.
Okay. Many of us have been in favor of having a full charge for the shuttle, but making it with transfers. So you could go from the regular MTD system to the shuttle and go down to the waterfront or the Amtrak or something, instead of this 25 and 50-cent rate. I've asked MTD to look at that and say, why can't you just make it a full service bus with transfers? And then students from UCSB and City College could all use it when they use the bus system. So please keep that in mind when you deal with them.
It's an essential link to our public transportation system too, linking MTD or between the Amtrak and the airport. And there's so many hospitality service industry employees who would benefit from this transportation system, and it's fully accessible, and it makes this one really huge, important part of our city accessible to people who don't have their own public mode of transportation. And I hear all the time we're advocating for, more public transportation, less dependent on private automobiles. But without this service year round, one of the best amenities of our beloved community is off limits to people who don't have their own transportation.
Yes.
And we are one of the rare cities who doesn't have any transit system to get to the Amtrak station. So for those who don't drive, it's very hard to get to Amtrak, which shouldn't be in this town. It should be very accessible, and all the way from Amtrak to the airport if you want to on the MTD.
So maybe the better question, because these two are not in charge of that,
Right.
they don't have any say in that, but maybe you guys could tell us who we should approach.
Yeah.
Committee Member Sorgman, thank you for making that point. Unfortunately, we aren't able to do route planning, but that would be MTD's purview, is determining where and when different transit services operate and what the fare is for those.
Okay, thank you.
But the city has influence over that, right? And so who in the city can help to advocate for this?
Committee members, I think both Sarah and I agree with all of the comments that you've shared. As staff, we recognize that there are some major areas where we are missing larger transit points. What I would recommend is making sure to continue to reach out to City Council and express that that you'd like to see those things operate consistently and beyond that summer period.
Thank you.
The other item I wanted to bring up, this is the last item I was going to mention, is a pilot called the State Street Loop. And it's a golf cart shuttle pilot program on State Street itself, running from the Dolphin Fountain or the waterfront up to Victoria Street, going northbound and then turning around at Victoria Street and coming down southbound on State Street itself. So operating in a loop fashion. It'll operate from Thursday through Sunday from 12 p.m. to 7 p.m. It'll begin in a couple weeks. May 29th is our anticipated start date, and it'll run through November at this point. It's a pilot just to test sort of a different operation on State Street. At this time, with the street being closed to vehicles, we're not able to bring a larger vehicle onto the street without reopening the street to vehicles, to general vehicles. So this is sort of a different option to try to bring people up and down State Street. It'll be 3 different golf carts. There will be an ADA accessible golf cart, and they will operate all together. So it'll be 3 golf carts that are really traveling up and down, so there's always an accessible portion traveling. I also have, so it's a partnership with the City of Santa Barbara, Friends of State Street, and the company Sweep Santa Barbara. They're a local company that operates currently out of the Funk Zone, and they've retrofitted one of their golf carts to make sure that they're ADA compliant. Yeah, it's 12 p.m. to 7 p.m. on Thursday through Sunday. There's going to be about a stop every block. So on one side, there won't be a stop on each side every block. So it's about, I think it's about 12 stops at the moment. And staff's going to be testing it out to make sure that those stops make sense and are in the right locations. But our hope is that that loop can happen sort of every 20 minutes or so that there's not a significant wait time if you're waiting for one of those shuttles. I also asked Sweep and Friends of State Street if there is a break during this meeting to come actually to this meeting. So there should be the ADA accessible golf cart in the parking lot. I know I saw Friends of State Street there waiting for them. I had asked around 10:30 for them to show up, so they might not be here quite yet. But if there's an interest in looking at the cart and kind of seeing what it looks like, certainly the committee is more than welcome to do so. Sweep also provided me with kind of a list of just the different configurations that they have, so I can, for the ramp and wheelchair accessibility. So I'm happy to share that with the committee. I'm also having our building staff, the staff that has the CASP certification, kind of take a look at it to make sure that it's operating in a compliant fashion.
Yeah. Do you know how many people can fit on one of these?
Yes, so there'll be 6 seats on, in total, there'll be 16 seats. So 6 seats per golf cart, and then the one that has the option for the wheelchair will have, I believe, 5 seats.
Will they be labeled outside so that someone in a wheelchair can see, like, oh, this will fit me?
Yes, they should be pretty easy to identify that the middle one, it'll likely be the middle one, will be the accessible one, and then they'll all be operating at the same time. They'll all be operating kind of together. So think of them, they're all going up the street and down the street together. So there will be that option. We're also looking at signage right now. So similar to where the waterfront shuttle, when it did operate on State Street, some of those poles, there'll be some temporary signage to indicate where the shuttle will stop. And then we're also looking at potentially putting something in the street to give further indication for where the stops will be. The other thing I'll note, just because there are things that happen on State Street somewhat regularly, different events, and with the Saturday farmers market, there'll be times where the shuttle won't go that full loop because of the closures. So for example, on Saturdays when the farmers market is out until about 1:30, that shuttle will operate up to the closure point at the farmers market and do a smaller loop back from the waterfront up to there, so that they're not going on other streets. So they're just going on State Street.
I had a long talk with Friends of State Street, and I have a question. I know about these 3 carts going in tandem. Is there just going to be one set of those going up and down, or is it multiple sets of 3?
Yes, great question, committee member. At this point, it's going to be one set of 3.
Okay, so I want to point out a
pilot.
problem that I see. There's one wheelchair accessible on these 3 golf carts. You have to wait for, if it's already been used, you've got to wait for the whole thing to go down to the waterfront and back and hope that now there's a room for you. That's not really very accessible. That's 1 out of 18 seats is accessible. And that's not, the regular MTD shuttle has 3 or 4 accessible seats. So I think you really should look at is it really what you want to have is one seat available every 20 minutes or so? And as Nick could point out, if you have a family with you, you might be waiting for an hour or two just to get a wheelchair accessible ride. So I think there's a big problem with only having one.
Well, the one thing that they have solved, I mean, initially, I think it was just going to be 4 spaces, so now we've increased it. So we've got the driver and then 4 additional individuals, including one in a wheelchair. So I think that's a positive thing. And is it here so that we could take a look at it?
It should be, committee members. I'm going to have Sarah go out and just take a look and make sure they're here.
Because I think, what do they say? A
And it
picture
would
is
be
worth
great
it.
to get your feedback. If there are things that, you
Yeah.
know, you all are more the experts than I am, myself or Sarah. And so we want to make sure that this starts off, we really do want to make
Right.
sure it's successful. And I recognize there are constraints. In a perfect world, this would be much larger. We'd have many golf carts going up and down. At this point, it's just a pilot and it's a test to see, you know, longer term, would the city invest in something and potentially in creating their own shuttle type system? So we did a lot of research looking at what other cities and companies have done. And there are different options out there, but many of them require that you purchase the vehicle. And so this was an opportunity for the city to first test it out without fully purchasing each of these vehicles, which would have been a much higher expense.
Can I ask, I'm sorry, go
Yeah,
ahead.
he was.
Okay.
You know, one of the thoughts, and I know because at Hillside, we recently received a grant that enabled us to purchase one of those vehicles, or a vehicle somewhat similar, that can accommodate, I believe it's up to 4 people in wheelchairs, along with their aides and a driver, actually an extra person, or it can be reconfigured. It's an adaptive van for up to 13 people, you know, in seats. So depending on the configuration, and it really is very quick to remove and take and change to accommodate. But if we get to the point, if the pilot program is approved, there are vehicles out there to be purchased that can allow different configurations, so that if we've got 3 or 4 shuttles, you know, on certain nights of the week or days of the week, you know, have 2 or 3 of them outfitted for, you know, more people with accessibility issues than fewer. You know, and until we get a feel for what that right mix is, what the right configuration and numbers are.
Yes, committee
by
member
usage.
Rassler, I completely agree, and I would love to work with, you know, if this is something that is successful and the community wants, I'd love to work with Hillside House to, you know, to hear just what company you used for yours, and to get further insight so that we can run something or purchase something if it's successful.
Well, I know the team did a lot of shopping, so we're happy to share that with you.
There are a lot of things out there.
I think there's a major distinction here is your vehicle is a full-size automobile. And
No. We have vans,
Yeah, but it,
but an extended, a new type of, but not a golf cart.
correct. And council is very,
No, but they have those as well. What I'm saying is, you know,
Okay.
we did an extensive, you know,
Okay.
kind of review, you know, vetting the vendors and bidding it all out. And we had to go with a enclosed vehicle for safety purposes and
Got it.
whatnot. But there were other options, much more along the line of an open
wonderful.
cart. Yeah.
great.
Did you have another comment or?
Yeah, I did have questions about scheduling and budgeting. So how does the schedule for this microtransit compare to the schedule that the MTD route has?
Yes, great question. They do overlap, but they are slightly different. So MTD is going to be operating from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. And the State Street Shuttle will be operating from noon until 7 p.m. Part of that reasoning is a lot of businesses don't open on State Street on Sundays until 11. So they wanted to push it back, and they're also trying to capture people that might be going to or from lunch and to at least to dinner, potentially from dinner as well. And so we tried to get it as late as possible. The one thing that the company, you know, wanted to be mindful of is just evening hours, and as it starts to get late or starts to get dark, it just becomes a little more challenging to run the golf cart, and so they're wanting to operate primarily in the daytime hours.
For what it's worth, I would love to see the MTD route go a little bit later into the evening for the same reasons. Not all of us want to eat dinner at 4 o'clock. And then the budgeting. Curious about the overall expense of this pilot and where that money's coming from.
Yes, good question, committee member. So the overall expense, it's just under $100,000 for the city. Friends of State Street is also putting in money, about a little over $30,000. So it really is a partnership. They've also helped with some of the marketing and the maps, and really they've been a great help in sort of being somewhat of a liaison for the city and Sweep Santa Barbara. But it's it's an expensive pilot, but we think it's a pilot worth testing and trying and seeing what can happen. I think one of the other potential positives of it is it'll be operating primarily in the bike lane. And so there'll be something in that lane to sort of start to slow down potentially some of the cyclists that are currently riding up and down. So we'll see how that works. But again, it's a pilot, and we're excited to learn from it. I think up until this point, there's been a lot of work happening on different options, but to really be able to have the opportunity to see something, same with the pedlets, to see how it works and what's working and what's not working, just helps staff be better informed before we go to a much larger project.
I was in Banff, and they closed down their main street in the summer, and it's used by pedestrians and bicyclists. The problem I see here is our bike lanes allow the bicyclist to own the street. This is ours. Versus in Banff, they shared it, so they didn't go as fast because there were pedestrians all over the street. So that might be something to consider, because we have a real serious problem with speed and injuries with those bike lanes. So if they're just eliminated and there's people in the street, the bikes aren't going to be able to race through with obstacles of people. So, and I had another question. Do we need, this is for Brian and Elizabeth, is it an 8 feet path of travel that's needed, or was it 7? I'm not recalling correctly.
It's not a code requirement, but it's a city goal for State Street to keep 8 feet clear.
8 feet, okay.
All right, is everyone done with their questions?
I have one more thought. I've heard from both of you this thing that if you have the shuttle, then you have to open the State Street to all vehicles. That's not true at all. So I don't know why I keep hearing that being said, but you have the right to say, we're going to open the State Street just to shuttle, the MTD shuttle, and not have any vehicles. Now, there might be some problems in keeping the vehicles off, but there's many places in the country where it's a street that just has one bus going up and down, and there's no cars at all. So please don't think it's impossible to do.
Yeah, Vice Chair Martison, through the chair, you're correct. It's not, we certainly would be within our rights to make it a regulation that only the bus could go on the street. But the issue is, as you specified, that once we had that bus going up and down the street, we expect that lots of other vehicles would then just follow, particularly delivery type vehicles, which are ones that are often can be sort of the most dangerous almost, because they tend to pull over and park in the bike lane and cause issues the way that they did on State Street before the traffic was removed. So, you know, we've certainly had this discussion pretty extensively. We're aware that there are certain places that do just have limited types of vehicles that are allowed to go on the street. We don't feel that that would be successful here. We worry that it would create a safety issue with the other vehicles also driving on the street. So.
Thank you.
All right, so then I think we're done with questions. We're going to wait if you tell us when that vehicle is here, and
They
we'll go take
should
a
be
look.
here. Sarah's going to go out and double check and see if they've made it yet. They are
Okay.
here.
All
So
right,
if
you
you'd like
guys-
to take a break and come check it out with us, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, is that okay to postpone the ADA?
We're going outside.
Yeah, that's fine. I think we'll
Okay.
be able to catch up.
Okay.
And any comments, please, the company is certainly willing to work with staff. So any comments that you all have, we really take them into consideration. We want it to be successful. So thank you again for hearing
Thank
us.
you. And please keep in mind that I think one wheelchair every 20 minutes is not nearly enough, so thank you.
in 2 weeks,
Great.
two Thursdays.
Well, congratulations.
That's the
A lot of
plan.
progress.
We're going to be doing some testing ahead of time, so certainly if a committee member's interested in testing it out with us, you're more than welcome to contact me and can see if we can get you out there earlier than that.
Great. Thank you. I'm sure they'll be back eventually.
All right. We don't have quorum yet, right?
You do.
We do? All right, let's get started. All right, so we're going to reconvene. It's a little after 11, and so we have a update to the 88 coordinators report.
Where's Skylar?
And we'll say, and thank you for your guys' report.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you very much.
Yes, absolutely. I think, did you take public comment for the item?
I was just going to ask.
Okay,
right.
sorry.
I have one more question. If I can, when the consulting group was here, there was a discussion of an art district or recreation center with art and music and a stage. Is that anywhere still on the interim plan?
Committee member, you mean a prior discussion that we had with the Access Advisory Committee? Yes, so we are still working on the overall State Street Master Plan right now. We're looking at it as 3 different districts, really focusing primarily on the center district, sort of thinking of it as the town center or heart of the city, because it combines De La Guerra Plaza, Casa de la Guerra, City Hall, Paseo Nuevo, all in that one section. So I do anticipate that that'll be the primary focus, but we are looking at the 3 different areas. And perhaps one other thing just to mention on that, so we were focused primarily on the short term today, but I anticipate coming back to the committee with the master plan, hopefully in your August meeting, if not the following meeting for sure.
All right, then. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any public comment regarding the State Street short-term plan? All right, then, on to the ADA report.
All right, thank you, Chair Sorgman. I'll try to move quickly on this so we can be kind of back on schedule, but that was really great to have a demo and be able to see what's happening with that shuttle. So on the ADA coordinator report, just a few quick items here. We did already talk about sign ordinance, so nothing new there. An item that I've been giving updates on probably for a year or so at this point are the ramps at the downtown theaters. You may have noticed that the Granada ramp was installed in the last few weeks. There's still some work that needs to be done there with the truncated domes, but the concrete has been poured, the ramp is installed, and I'm pretty pleased with how that turned out. The contractor, which is Lash, they're at the Arlington location. I haven't taken a look to see what the progress is on that, but that's the next one, and then they'll go over to the Victoria Theater after that. So those are the 3. It's finally happening. I know it's been kind of a long wait. It was added work to a contract that they already had, so we kind of gave them a little bit of flexibility in terms of when to schedule that, since it was already change order that we were paying for. But pleased to just let you know that that's all happening. Budget, just quick update, mostly Measure C and capital related, but next couple years are going to be lighter on the capital in general, just because of the police station project. But one thing I can tell you is that in meetings that I was a part of, the city administrator made it very clear that we were not going to be making any cuts to some of the accessibility-related items that have been funded historically over the years, namely the ADA transition plan and the ADA walkways and building pathways line items. And you'll hear more about what we're doing with those funds in the update from Craig in a little bit. But that's going to get the typical annual allotment. We have currently over $1.5 million in those funds, and we're going to get another $350,000. So we're almost up to $2 million. And we really need to start spending those funds. Otherwise, they're going to become a target. So that's kind of the update on budget. Dwight Murphy, some really great news to share there. That was awarded, the contract was awarded by council earlier this month. And work is going to start in early part of June. There's a groundbreaking set up. Press release went out. I don't know if folks saw, would have had to read kind of down to the end of the press release. But the Gwendolyn Strong Foundation has been a great partner with us on funding for that project. And they raised $6 million, which we've known about. But there's this new funding source that was highlighted at the end of this media release of a $5 million pledge from Ty Warner. So that's huge because the price came in over our estimate, and this is going to help bridge that gap to make sure we're able to fund the entirety of that project. So we're very excited to kick that off. That's going to be, multi-sport field for a variety of different uses, and it can be used pretty much around the clock, being an artificial turf field. Fitness area, there is a grass area, group picnic areas, brand new restrooms, and of course, one of the main highlights, especially from this committee interest, is the All Abilities Playground. So really looking forward to kicking that off, and we can probably give project updates to the committee because that's, I think it shows. Well, Craig's right next to me. He probably knows the completion on that. I'm seeing spring of 2027. So,
when is construction scheduled to start?
June 2nd, I think, is the day listed here. Yeah.
Cool.
So right around the corner. And then
Quick question about
Yeah.
the Dwight Murphy project. I understood that everybody felt like it was fully funded at $6 million. And then how did we come up with a $5 million shortfall at the last minute? I'm curious as what happened there.
so that was based on estimates.
Okay.
We had secured funding based on the best estimates we had in place.
Were those contractor estimates?
It's typically an engineer's estimate that we have during the design phase.
Right.
And then we go out either to bid, or in this case, because we did a best value selection, it was, we were soliciting proposals from contractors. And we received 2 proposals, and they were both over the engineer's estimate, which unfortunately, in the current climate that we have, it has not been unusual to receive a limited number of bids and for them to be over the estimate. So that was something we had to then sort out is, okay, we've got these 2 proposals. They're both capable contractors, but they're over our estimate. They're over the available funding that we have. And we were able to work out a game plan to be able to move forward on that project. And certainly the pledge is going to help a long ways to not have to put additional city funds into that project.
And given the state of affairs, supply chain issues, cost of supplies, lumber alone, it's going to go up significantly by the time it's done. There will be a lot of value engineering. They're probably going to need another 2, 3 to 5 million.
Wow.
Just, reality, having built projects and, the way it works. When they started and the engineer did the plan, we weren't in the world that we are in now.
Right.
I don't think we had tariffs of the kind of impact.
Well, and
just as an example.
Those tariffs may be gone by the time we get to working on it,
Exactly.
right?
So we just don't know. The whole thing is just it's a crapshoot at this point. You're looking 2 years out before they get a shovel in the ground. A week out till they get a shovel in the ground, and at least 2 years before it's done. And in that time, a lot of stuff's going to happen.
Yeah.
So.
All right, and then, the last item I wanted to let the whole committee know about, we did receive a grievance, I think it was around about the time of the last meeting, related to accessible parking at City Hall, and took a little bit of internal coordination, but we ended up just making the decision that was going to be enhancing accessibility to the greatest extent we had in our abilities, which was to so there's, I guess, stepping back a little bit, the employee parking lot at City Hall has 3 accessible parking spaces. The entire lot is posted for only employee use. Those 3 accessible spaces are almost never used. Fortunately, we don't have staff in City Hall that currently need one of those spaces. So from a public use point of view, there aren't a lot of spaces in the vicinity of City Hall. So you've got this resource that's sitting right there and it's not being used. Just trying to connect the dots to open that up, to make it usable for the public. It seemed like the right thing to do. So it took a little bit, but we decided we're going to put some different signage up there and allow those 3 spaces to be used by the public during, not just during the off hours, because anybody can park at City Hall outside of business hours, but during all hours, those spaces would be available. Because there really aren't enough spaces in the general vicinity of City Hall, and those are right. You can very easily get to. Yes, they are prime spots. So we made the decision to just go ahead and open that up rather than try to figure out, do we or don't we have to do it. Just let's do what's best. So
Can I ask, what's the messaging, the signage difference? How's that going to be implemented? I hear that, that's what the final component is to change the signage, and I don't see any ambiguity in the signage that's there. I think I don't understand the need for changing signage. I think it's just an enforcement policy issue.
well, the signage that's there today, it makes it clear that it's employee-only parking.
But the ADA parking says by permit only, and I have a permit issued by the state of California.
So I guess the ambiguity would be, is it a employee parking permit? Because that's what you're supposed to have. I can't park at City Hall because I don't have a permit.
Yeah.
And that permit that is referring to is the employee permit.
Yeah.
So there's a little
what-
bit of
Yeah, how is the
confusion.
signage going to be changed?
I can
what's-
send you what I came up with that we're going to
Okay.
have printed off.
I really don't think you need to do anything with signage. I think you just need to change your policy.
You know what, I think.
I think the
cities-
combination
Yeah,
will be
city's making the
best.
decision that they want to
Okay.
make it clear, and so
Okay.
wait for them.
And
Thank you.
I also heard that there was a bigger policy review effort underway as a result of that grievance that might impact other city-owned properties. Is there any update you can provide on that, or what the scope of that evaluation might be?
I've only been in conversations with the City Hall
Okay.
issue, so I'm not aware of how that would translate to other locations.
Okay.
Yeah.
Given that the staff composition at City Hall can change at any time, and in the future, there may be individuals with ambulatory issues that need the accessible parking. I imagine the same is true for all of the city-owned parking lots. And I don't know if I need to make a motion for the committee, but I think all city-owned properties, accessible parking should be available to the public when those spots are not being used by a city employee.
I would argue that in the public, the private sector, any private business that serves the public struggles with the same logistics, and the California law is pretty clear. that they have to provide the ADA parking to accommodate both the public and the employees, and they don't need to further regulate it.
Correct. However, because of history and current signage, and I know you've heard of muscle memory, there's
Yeah.
also donor memory as a
Yeah.
philanthropist. Well, there's also probably parking memory.
Yeah.
You know, and if you've been going to, driving by a particular city property and it says employee parking only for the last 25 years,
Oh, yeah.
you're just not pulling in.
Yeah.
You're not
I'm
pulling
sorry,
in.
I misunderstood your original comment. I thought you were trying to provide a carve-out for an employee who,
No.
Okay.
What I'm saying is, all city property that has
Yeah.
accessible parking
Yeah.
spots,
Yep.
those spots should be available
Yep.
to the public.
Yep.
Not just employees only.
Right.
So where there is signage that says employee parking only, maybe you just add except for accessible or handicap spots which
Right.
are available to the
Right.
public. Whatever you've figured out for the city parking lot, my motion would be apply that across the board to all city property.
I agree.
So I'm gonna ask that this be a topic that we bring up at some future meeting, because I don't think, I mean, there's lots of ramifications, places that have safety issues that are gated, and so it's not just as easy as you're stating, but it should be a topic that we bring up, okay? All
Fair enough.
Sounds good.
right, so then,
That's it for me on ADA.
Brian, can I ask one real question? I had asked you before to look into the fact that, as Nick said, private parking lots have to let people use their accessible spots.
In the public space.
Right, and so I was curious, if you just say this is a private parking lot, how come you're not under the same law as the private business owner? Did
So-
you ever find out?
Well, that's what I was getting at, is like, we could have chosen to go down a different path on this and said, well, we're going to evaluate this in the same way that a private business could, which was, it's not open to public use.
Okay.
But we chose not to do that. We chose to go down a path that was more inclusive and more accessible.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you.
all right, so 88 update.
Okay, hello. So today's update will be relatively short. As you may or may not know, my wife had a baby about 6 weeks ago, and so I've been pretty well tied up in that meantime. But probably the last 2 weeks, I've been full-time again, and was able to dive back in with the bid packages that we discussed previously. So I just want to recap the previous update that we gave. As you know, at the last update, we had completed the back check of all of the properties and determined what was still outstanding. So, and then the next steps were to issue bid packages to implement the corrections for the remaining balance of items, incomplete items. So that process continues. And at the time, I had said that we were going to try to get the bid packages issued in the second quarter of this year. We're a little bit behind that, although I think technically the end of June is the end of the second quarter. We will have some bid packages ready. And on that note, what I'd like to do is have an ad hoc the first week of June, if possible. I think Maya and I will be ready to present what we think are good packages, get some feedback, then actually go out onto the street. So I don't know if we need to schedule that right now, or just as a follow-up to this meeting, we can schedule the ad hoc. But I propose the first week of June, if we can get that somehow tentative on our calendars. And then I wanted to also follow up as you know, the last update, we talked about the CIP projects that are in progress that also simultaneously address transition plan deficiencies. And so as a quick update, City Hall is the major project that we have. Well, I shouldn't say that. Police station is the major project. Dwight Murphy is another major project. Police station, as you know, addresses all deficiencies in the previous report. Dwight Murphy had its own study, and I think everybody's going to be incredibly happy about brand-new bathrooms, brand-new path of travel, brand-new parking, brand-new signage, it's just a complete overhaul. So Dwight Murphy and Police Station, and then City Hall is the design. We're getting to about the 50% level, hoping to get in front of HLC because of the exterior changes. I think probably by July, we'd like to get on the agenda for HLC. The tentative goal is to be submitted to the building department by the end of this year for a building permit for the City Hall renovations. Sorry, the City Hall barrier removal project. That is our, technically what we're calling it. Out at the airport, the bus stop, path of travel crosswalk at Moffett Place is, I think the ribbon cutting is next week. But it's almost done as well. So under Parks and Rec, there's multiple items besides Dwight Murphy. Alice Keck Park has had a barrier removal project. I think that's about complete as well. I need to follow up with Kevin on that. But one thing I didn't mention, recently we did some remodel to the Davis Center, and that addressed most, if not all, of the items in the transition plan. For the deficiencies there at the restrooms and the entry door. I think there was a threshold issue, change in height, some path of travel items, but I believe all of the barriers have been removed at Davis Center as of now with the recent project. I welcome anyone to go over and look at it. It actually looks beautiful. It's a nice little building now for the programs and events that are held there. Currently, the Chase Palm Park Arbor is being constructed, and that will, parking, for one, the accessible parking is being upgraded. The crosswalk ramp to the crosswalk across the street to the other side of Chase Palm Park at the beach is replaced, and then just general path of travel improvements as a part of that project. And then La Mesa Park, there's a restrooms, a rehab project that will address ADA issues. That's in planning and design. And there are various parking lots that will be restriped and re-signage as part of the scope of there's some overlays and some parking lot rehab to those parking lots. And then there's also lighting improvements at all of the parks, which are, I don't even think that was addressed in the transition plan. I don't recall seeing that, but there are light level issues at the parks that it'll solve problems generally, but specifically for site issues. And then Ortega Park is in long-range planning. The drawings are actually, the design is very far along, but budgeting is the issue there. But the point is, Ortega Park is next on the long-range plan with Parks and Rec to basically get what Dwight Murphy is getting now. Out at the waterfront, we have a project to do a path of travel down Harbor Way that goes in front of the Coast Guard, building a sidewalk in front of the Coast Guard building, and a clear striping and path all the way back to Brophy Brothers and to the city waterfront offices. That whole path of travel project is in progress and design now. We're calling that at 30%. We've got the conceptual design completed and about to go into the details here. So back to the schedule. Again, we are looking to implement bid packages or issue bid packages this Q2, and then actually award contracts end of June, beginning of Q3 to start getting the doors and hardware packages, the signage packages, the toilet accessories packages, the cabinetry, service counter packages, and some miscellaneous metals, railings, and et cetera. So we've got some distinct packages we're working on that I'd like to talk about at the ad hoc. But basically still on track for quarter 2, quarter 3 to get these packages issued, and then complete the work quarter 3, quarter 4, and into 2026. So I think we should see hundreds of items addressed out of the transition plan in the next year.
Thank you, Craig. I'll take it upon myself to write to the other members of the ad hoc committee, see when we're ready in the first week of June. Is it in person okay with you guys?
Absolutely.
We'll see how the other people are, but I'll coordinate with them, and then I'll let you and Maya know what dates are available.
Great.
Does that sound
Great.
good?
Great
great.
report. I have a question. There's a lot of stuff getting done, and I greatly appreciate that. I'm wanting to look forward a little bit, and I wonder what the older transition plan that we haven't seen all the details. We only saw the 8 top priority items. I wonder if we can look into what that has to say about the waterfront, the Stearns Wharf in particular. I would love to see us moving towards a accessible path of travel out to the end of the pier and around the pier, because that the boards, I don't believe that that's going to work for most people in a manual wheelchair, and there may be something relatively inexpensive that could be overlaid to provide better accessibility to Stearns Wharf. Also, there's an issue with a waterfront concession that's about to change hands at Ledbetter Beach. Or maybe it's already changed hands. The Shoreline Beach Cafe is a city-owned concession that underwent some remodeling in the past that wasn't to code, and I see it's now going to change hands in terms of operation, and I hope that the new operators are aware of that deficiency. Specifically, the raised deck seating, it's all enclosed and undercover, was installed after the ADA without any compliant ramp and access. So there is effectively only 3 tables that are wheelchair accessible in the whole restaurant, and there's clearly 2 different dining experiences. There's the beachfront experience, which is great. I love that I can sit there on the beach. But some days it's a little too breezy and it's nice to be underneath, or too sunny. It's nice to be underneath the cover and inside the glass walls, and the majority of the available seating is a very different experience that's completely inaccessible. And somehow we missed the required accessibility there. I don't know that it's a ADA transition plan issue per se, but maybe it could be. I don't know.
Yeah, the waterfront actually has its own specific transition plan, but I don't know. It's quite detailed. It's almost as heavy as the 9 sites that we've talked about previously. So Shoreline probably is addressed within there, but we'll look specifically.
Do they have their own budget for remediation?
I don't know.
It would have to come from that enterprise, but I don't know how much they have available for something like that.
Can we get an update?
Yeah.
Love to see Mike Wiltshire again. He's still running things down there, yeah?
All right, so that's the update on the ADA coordinators report. Is there any public comment? All right, so then we're on to the ad hoc committee reports. So the sidewalk committee hasn't met. Has the parking ad hoc committee had any meetings?
No.
Okay. The outdoor-
But would like to have staff facilitate a meeting between the ad hoc and the downtown parking group or in traffic engineering, because while things are looking good on the 0-100 blocks, prior to the 0-100 blocks, we wanted to look at the 100 blocks, and I'd like to get back to that discussion.
Okay, so I'll send an email just to get that
Okay.
facilitated. The outdoor dining and State Street interim, just we've not had a meeting. The recognition nomination committee,
So, didn't we dissolve, or I don't remember the status there, but it's about time. I should have sent out an update. We should be looking at taking those nominations now and getting them out there. And I'd just like to throw it out that I'd like to recognize the Santa Barbara International Film Festival for their great effort here. I expect we could all get behind that. And I've been wanting to recognize a private institution for making their public access better. And certainly, we've recognized nonprofits for their efforts and whatnot, but this is another opportunity that I was hoping to present itself.
Yeah, I would second that nomination, and I see it very much along the lines of the inaugural year's awards when we recognized the Alpha Resource Center for the actual doing.
Yeah.
And I think it was the Women's Fund for enabling.
Yeah.
You know, and Hillside for educating or something else.
Right.
But I think this fits very well,
Yeah.
you know, along the actually doing and making it happen.
Yeah.
all right, so I'll send an email out to get the recognition committee to have a meeting to take a look at that.
I would say everyone should send maybe Brian the nominations, and then once we have nominations, the ad hoc can convene.
Exactly. I think that's what we've done in the past, so I can probably find the message from last time and
Yeah.
just refresh that, yeah.
All right, so the special events ad hoc committee,
Yeah, I'd like to say that we met twice, and the Parks and Recs have made significant progress in accommodating the parade viewing sites for Solstice and Fiesta. So they've actually designated spaces where they're going to have real accessible bathrooms and
Parking.
that we can set up spaces. So I was very happy. I think the committee was very happy with the accommodations that were being made.
Yeah, I thought it was a very constructive and productive meeting that will have designated areas, you know, both for seniors as well as for you know, people with disabilities. And we were advised that, as with the regular general public, organizations, you know, that want to reserve space within the area designated can go and set up their chairs and pop-up tents, whatever they may have, just like anybody else in the community does, which for whatever reason, you know, it doesn't seem like the organizations have taken upon themselves to do. But I think we made a lot of progress.
Yeah.
And the parades themselves are going to have little areas on the flyers and the emails about
And the
how
website.
to access the information on location for disabled viewing.
Yeah, we don't know if that'll be through a QR code or what, but they did mention that they're going to do a better job of letting the public know, so it's not just, you know, the handful of organizations and/or individuals who may happen to be aware.
I also understood that park staff made it clear to all their organizations that they have a requirement under the ADA to update their websites with this stuff and make that accessible. I would agree that there was 2 meetings. They were very productive, lots of progress. I think that there's still a little confusion or ambiguity on how we're going to implement some of the reservations and who's going to manage that. I guess these are just details that we're going to need to work out, and there's some.
And there's the vendors of each of these parades or festivals that are not the city necessarily.
Right.
And organizations will need to be instructed to work directly with them.
Right.
So, you know, there are some things that we'll just get better at as we go along.
Yep, but definitely heading in the right direction and at a faster clip than I would have suspected.
Okay, so then we have the 88, well, the 88 transition plan,
I think we just heard that.
yeah, there's no committee information, right? So you guys haven't gotten together, but you will, okay. Then I do not have anything on the Santa Barbara Police Station, I just haven't had a chance to get through all of it. All right, so then we have the last, which is wait, is there any public comment about the ad hoc committee reports?
I actually, well, not a public comment, I do have a non-agenda item about accessibility that I would like to share when the time is right. I don't know
Okay,
exactly when
we'll
that'll
do
be.
it right after the 88 transition plan update. We'll add that as new business.
We sort of weave that in.
Yeah,
And I wondered about that. I was, because I said 88 and I didn't say which, so I wanted to make sure. Okay, so then we're good on the 88 transition plan update. And there was so much information and so much work that you've done. Thank you.
Yeah,
So-
agreed.
good
Yes.
report.
All right, so then go ahead and give your update.
Thank you. I wanted the committee and, the viewing public, or present public, just to be aware that over the last couple of 3 or 4 weeks, Hillside in particular appeared on the app Nextdoor, one of these neighbors apps that's local, with some complaints about accessibility to the open space, the Palermo open space. And there was great confusion between Hillside's private property and what is the Palermo open space and the 5.3 acres of city property between the Palermo open space and Hillside's property. And since the pandemic, we've just had tremendous visitation by neighbors and people exploring the beautiful property and in the Arroyo Burrow that runs through. And there's apparently a historic path from basically Hendry's Beach to Santa Ynez along the Arroyo Burrow and the various contributaries. On April 10th, 1990, so 35 years ago, a public easement was granted along the Arroyo Burrow through Hillside's private property, through the city's property, and through what became the Palermo open space for riding and hiking purposes. Well, over the 35 years, that had become unused, it had gone fallow, overgrown with poison oak, trees had fallen down, and the Arroyo Burrow, with heavy rains and whatnot, natural irrigation had changed shape. A couple of oxbows here and there and whatnot. And the 25-foot easement on either side from the center of the creek was no longer, where it was 35 years ago. And now, in fact, it was under, and eroded away a demarcation fence, the old original Jody house, and really right against the back door of Assistance League. So that historic easement, there was no longer any accessibility. And consequently, the neighborhood visitors created a path and tore down a legal fence, a protective fence, really to keep residents in more than to keep community members out. So through a very creative collaboration with the city of Santa Barbara and with the Friends of the Arroyo Burrow, we've reestablished accessibility to this historic easement along the Arroyo Burrow, connecting the Palermo and Modoc neighborhoods basically directly through to Las Positas, either the bike path there or very shortly into the Las Positas open space that connects to the Allen Road open space and onto Hendry's. So there now is a defined area, and the city even came out and cleared a path, and again, got a lot of overgrowth over the years. So this chest-high, wild native grasses and whatnot has now been cut. There's a wide, maybe 5 or 6 feet path from the Palermo open space to the public easement. And as well, they put another path up to the Modoc, foot trail and bike path.
Multi-use path.
Multi-use path, thank you. Effectively, reestablishing and connecting, almost completing, almost not quite, the city's full, bike and, and walking, paths. And we knew this was like, one of the missing pieces to that 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle, and it's kind of nice to put that piece back into place. So thanks to the Friends of Arroyo Borough, thanks to the City of Santa Barbara and the leadership at Hillside, we think we've created a wonderful community benefit with accessibility that just really wasn't there before.
Do you need to update your parcel's easement, the recorded easement, or?
No, not according to the city code enforcement officer. We're absolutely fine the way we are, and with a development that will be happening, I imagine they'll have to revise that easement in the future, given that the creek, has basically, changed.
Yeah.
All right, then, well, thank you so much for that update, and I think we are done. Thank you, everyone, and so meeting is adjourned.